How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Ginny Arts. I'm Ginny, and today we're doing something completely new to this channel. We're going to draw a really creative graphic design. So let's start. For this drawing, you will need your favorite sketching pencil. You will also need some erasers. I will also be using pigment liners, as you can see here. I forgot to take some into my hand, well, some different sizes, but I'll be using 0.05, 0.4, 0.6 and 0.8, but it's a personal preference, so you can use whatever you want. And what's optional is you may need a ruler. Yeah, so what I have here right now is a couple of hexagons, I believe that's what they're called. So I just cut them out of paper so I don't have to freehand them. Also, this would save a lot of time in order to create a good composition. So what I did in the beginning, I just played around a bit, trying to figure out how I could put them together. For reference, you can see the numbers on them. The numbers do not correlate in size. I just made 2 of each, and I believe there's 4 pairs in total. So yeah, I just try to play around and figure out how I could put them all together in order for them to look good. After some playing around off camera, just to save some time, I finally more or less figured out the design. All I needed to do is just put everything in place. While you're trying to figure out, to put your final shape into position, try to get the lines, well, more or less equal to each other. By lines, I mean all the spaces between each shape. So yeah, just make sure to do that and everything will look amazing. Then I took my pencil and marked out the corners of each hexagon. I started doing this one by one, so I marked out the corners and then used the ruler to trace it. At first this wasn't, well, as clean as perfect, but in the end I fixed it all up because, well, I guess my cutouts weren't the perfect shape, so I had to go in and try to freehand it a little bit, and I think I ended up doing a pretty good job. So yeah, basically what you need to do is then just mark out each individual hexagon that you have. Don't be afraid to move your other hexagons around, just because, well, you can always put them back later. Just remove the one you traced and continue this process until you have all the shapes already marked out, but make sure to do this with a pencil. This is crucial. Now, probably the most complicated part for me was to figure out what to draw in them. And in the end, I ended up choosing this sort of a landscape with a lighthouse. So what I'm doing here is just drawing a hill that sort of goes into the ocean. So we're doing some grass here, and when I start lining this, you will be able to see what I mean. So yeah, we're just doing this tiny hill with a layer of grass, and then some sand will be visible. Then I started adding a lighthouse, and for the lighthouse it's just like sort of a hexagon pyramid shape, and you can only see 3 sides. It's going up. Don't be afraid to go out of the hexagon shapes. Of course, don't do it with the whole composition because then it will lose the meaning, but for the lighthouse I decided to go over the spaces between hexagons, go over the lines of them, and this is why I said to do it in pencil, because when you're working with pencil it's a lot easier to erase everything, and you just have more space to experiment. So for the lighthouse, I drew the initial shape, then I added this sort of a handrail at the top, then another place where the glass is, and then just a tiny roof with a flag on top of it. To finish off the lighthouse, I added at the bottom a staircase sort of shape, and of course I added some windows to... Well, I've noticed that while looking at the references that lighthouses usually have some sort of a small house next to them, so I just followed one reference image and I drew a really tiny house behind the lighthouse. So yeah, but it's completely optional. I mean, some of these don't have those tiny houses, so it's all up to you. Oh, and of course do not forget the entrance to the lighthouse. Then once I did that, I went to the bottom of the hill, added some rocks and some tiny waves underneath. Then I moved on to another hexagon and tried to draw a simple wave. The key to these are just to be random. Do not follow perfect shapes, just let your hand do its own thing. So I ended up drawing like, I believe it's 2 waves in one almost. Well, you'll see the end product. So yeah, I drew a really sort of big wave going towards the lighthouse, and don't be afraid to, again, as I said, use imperfect shapes because that will look more natural. You can add some drops around the wave itself. So yeah, once I did that, I ended up drawing more waves at the bottom hexagon, and for those I just used interlocking triangles, as you can see in the video. After that, I started drawing a wave that already crashed into the hill of the lighthouse. Again, here all you have to do is follow really random shape. Try to make it look as good as possible. I found one reference online that helped me figure this out. So basically just draw an outline of the wave even if it looks weird, and then you try to draw a similar shape inside of this shape, and you end up just coloring the inner shape black while leaving the outer one a bit lighter, and this gives a good wave effect. You can also add some droplets, add some tiny sort of holes in the dark shape, and yeah, this just really gives the finishing touch to the wave. Then what I did after drawing the wave is I added 2 lines that emulate light going from the lighthouse, and it goes towards the big wave. You can use a ruler for that. I went over the hexagon lines, and well, this was like an accent for the whole drawing. Then it was really hard to figure out what to draw next, so I decided to start simple and quite basic. I drew 3 birds in the light of the lighthouse, and then decided to draw some rain clouds at the top. I think I ended up drawing 3 of those just to fill everything in, and to complete the overall image I decided to add raindrops throughout the whole scenery just to give it a bit more of a stormy mood. So once I added all the rain, I considered my sketch being complete, and then I started lining. So for the hexagons, well, for the outline of them, I used a 0.8 liner, I believe. I think I will be showing those in the video, so if I say this incorrectly, just look what I'm using. I believe I will be showing the caps of them. So yeah, so for the hexagons, I wanted those to be like one of the boldest lines just to give it some sort of an accent. So yeah. Then I went in with a 0.4 liner and started outlining the shapes without the detail. So for example, I outlined the lighthouse itself, of course colored the windows, then I outlined the wave, outlined the clouds and the birds. But in the clouds only outline the main, well, sort of outline and the few lines that emulate the whole form of it. And for the wave, yeah, just do the basic shapes. Do not add details at this point whatsoever. So after I did the, well, main outline, of course I forgot to mention that for the lights that indicate the light going from the lighthouse, I used really bold lines. It was equivalent to I believe a 0.8 liner. So yeah, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Then I took a 0.05 liner just to get all the details and the shading in. So to shade with this liner, all you have to do is be really light, and you have to go at it at a sort of an angle and just lightly draw these sort of lines that would end up being a shadow. If you're familiar with cross hatching, it's something like that, but you just have to be a bit lighter so that every stroke does not create a solid line. So for the darker parts, I did a couple layers creating crisscrosses. For the lighter parts, I just went with one layer of cross hatching, I guess. So for the lighthouse, by the way, I took a really sort of a realistic approach to it, well, from a realism drawing perspective. I used all the light theory, so basically the lighthouse has to be shaded from dark to light, going from right to left, just because there's light coming off of the left side. The same goes for the stairs of the lighthouse and the roof, also the flag. For the hill, I used a really monotone sort of shade just to get the grass done. I added a bit more lines, extra shades and grass details to emulate the actual hill itself, well, the texture of it. And then when it came to the sand part, I tried to do it a bit darker than the grass area, and for the sea I just shaded it dark to light, going from right to left, as you can see, and basically I just shaded every single triangle. Now for the waves, as I mentioned, the wave that's hitting the lighthouse, you have to shade the inner part black, and I did a really light shade on the lighter area of the wave. Then for the second wave, again, the part that's underneath, well, you know, when there's a wave, there's the white part of the wave and the blue part of the wave. So for the blue part, I just added a lot of lines, a lot of vertical lines that go with the shape of the wave itself. I made sure that the bottom and the upper part of that area is darker, so it's the lightest in the middle. This just gives a bit more texture and the feel of the whole, well, not, you know, the whole wave. Now for the white part of the wave, basically all you have to do is just add a really light shade of gray, I guess. Then what I didn't do until the very end is just darken up the top part of the white area. This will give it a bit more dimension. Now, probably the hardest part to shade in this drawing are the clouds. Basically, I try to use the same technique to shade them as well. All I did was draw really light circular patterns all over it. Again, what I didn't do, the same with the waves, till the very end, I should have outlined, well, not outlined, but should have darkened everything a bit more near the outline, both inside the cloud and outside. This gives a bit more dimension. But yeah, don't be afraid to keep it random. Just draw really circular oval shapes inside of the cloud. Use a really light hand movement, and you should achieve the result quite nicely. To finish off, all you have to do is just draw the rain. Just make sure that it's not going in the same line, make sure it's random. And for the part where the light of the lighthouse goes, try to add the rain try to make the rain a bit denser, sort of, so add more droplets, because when light hits rain, it's usually a bit more visible, so this will be a really great accent to all of this. And well, in the first hexagon with the light, it's really simple to make the rain denser, but then to make everything blend out into the distance for the hexagon that's on the left and still has some light to it, just add a bit more droplets of rain in the right side and just try to gently make a transition from a lot of rain to a bit less rain as you go through the whole hexagon. Then just add some finishing touches and you're done. Now, while I'm still adding the finishing touches in the drawing, I want to take a few seconds to just say that I will create a separate video, and probably next week, explaining why I did something that's not realism related. I have a bit sort of ideas for the channel and I want to present them, so just stay tuned for next week. I think I'll upload a date on one of my social media pages, so make sure to follow those. If you enjoyed this video, since it's something new, please let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more of this. Of course, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any new videos, and especially the one where I will be explaining what new ideas I have for this channel. And of course, while you're at it, hit the like button, and I'll see you guys next week.